This video briefly covers the revision management facilities incorporated in the Eclipse iSpec2200 application. The iSpec2200 application has got this tightly integrated revision management feature incorporated, and when you're starting a new CMM you need to set the revision date. Each time a revision is going to be incorporated, a new revision should be added to the CMM. It's done very straightforwardly. When a change is made to the CMM, the latest revision date should be selected, and normally this occurs by default. So we'll have a look now at adding the first revision date. And you can see now here we have a page, a CMM, inserted into FrameMaker 2015. And with the book selected in this left-hand column here, we need to go to the CMM preferences, to the revision bit, and then we need to add a new date. So we're going to, first of all, we'll add the date, the year, then the month, and then the day. And then we can add that in. As you can see, we can also add other bits in there, like inserted date and that sort of thing. Now, what we need to do then is to actually remove the original date there. We can only do that via this window here. Confirm deletion. Yes, so that takes that out. Now, if we now select OK, it now goes and puts that new date into all of the page blocks. And you can see we've got a log console here, and it goes through, updating the variables. The ATA specification says that all the elements added to the CMM should be allocated an anchor value. That anchor value is generated by our system. And the value for each element or item added is unique in a specific CMM. No duplicates are allowed inside the CMM. And to ensure that that happens, our application creates a list of effective anchors. To start with, that list of effective anchors is not created, and as soon as you start doing something, it'll ask you if you want to create that list of effective anchors. The thing which is very important is that that list should not be edited manually. If you do that, you stand the chance of messing up the actual numbering scheme and the tracking system. What we're going to do then is to add some information to this publication. So what we have here is material which has already been added as part of the blank document that we're putting in. So we're not going to mess around with that. What I'm going to do to start with then, to demonstrate part of the anchoring mechanism, is to insert a subtask, another subtask. When we insert another subtask, we're asked for a function code, because that says what sort of information it is. The function code 10, from my point of view, is not relevant, but you can see automatically that the code is put in at that point. So I'm going to put in a procedural list level 1, and it puts in, automatically inserts a paragraph. So this now means that I can actually, this is the first part of the subtask. So what I do now is to insert another procedural item level 1 and do this second of the subtask. And so you go on putting the data in. This is the third part of the subtask. So I've stopped putting in subtasks. Well, I haven't stopped putting in subtasks. What I'm going to do now is to put in another topic at that point. And put in a procedural list level 1. And this is another procedural level 1. And so you go on adding the information in, and if at this point we want to put in a subtask at that point, we can't, because we put that item in. So you can see as part of the system, it tracks whether you can do something or not. Now, it would be actually unusual to have procedural list level 1 at that point, so let's just delete that and put in a subtask that we actually had before. And up comes the subtask, so we put in another code, and then we can put in the procedural level 1. The paragraph comes up, another part of a new subtask. So you can see that it's relatively straightforward to do this. Now, what I'm doing now is, by default, the system comes with a setup to work with a type 4 type structure, and if you remember in an earlier video we did actually show how you could change that, and because we're doing everything which is right, there's no red text coming in here at all. So that's how one adds the subtasks. If we want to add an illustration, we put in, we need to come down a bit further for that. There. What we're going to do now is to add a graphic to this document, and we do that by coming down underneath the procedural level item 2. When we click on there, and you can see that graphic is one of the things that we have actually got to work with here. We then have to put in a function code, and at that point we put in fsheet, and then an image. It opens up the file window, and we go down here. I know I've got some down the bottom in here. Click on import, and it inserts the graphic for us. Now the question is, what do we want to do with this? We can resize it if we wish, or we can do other things with it. Let's put a title in, shall we? This is the figure title, which is the top title. We can have a display. The display title will automatically show whatever's in the top title, and it'll also include things like the sheet number and that sort of thing if there's more than one sheet in there. As part of a CMM, there are a certain number of page blocks which are, if you like, generated automatically, and although they are generated automatically, it means that they have to be initiated by the author. They can be updated automatically, of course. This sort of information is things like table of contents, list of figures, list of tables, list of effective pages. I'm going to have a look now at the generation of these pages, which are, if you like, initiated manually, but actually all the hard work is done for you. First of all, I should say that you'll see some errors here, and that's because, as part of the demonstration, I've been inserting elements that not necessarily in the right place, and to demonstrate other items. So first, what we're going to do then is to first of all produce a table of contents, list of figures, list of tables. So we go to the menu for the ACMM service bulletin iSpec2200, and we click on the generate, and you can see it's actually created a table of contents in there, and it automatically inserts it in the book, and it gives it the title of the actual book itself, so that there can be no doubt about that. The revision date isn't allowed for, and it's one of those things. Earlier on we actually inserted the revision date, but I didn't go through the document making sure that the revision date was okay all the way through. So let's get rid of that bit. What I'm going to do now then is to have a look at the list of effective pages, and the same problem will occur here. So we don't have an initial issue in there, and it's not relevant. You may remember I removed the initial revision date, the first one. So that's why we've got all these errors. And it's creating it. and it's now created a list of effective pages. And just to prove that we have actually generated something, let's have a quick look at the table of contents there. Let's get this out of the way, and you can see that actually what we've done here is we have actually created a table of contents. This has been generated totally automatically. And once again, if we do the list of effective pages, we'll see that that comes up, and once again the list of effective pages is all there. Let's get rid of that, and you can see the page number blank, February. It's got the wrong date in all of these, so you might expect that to be correct. So it will give you the list of effective pages, and you'll note too that actually this is a double column one. You can have the list of effective pages as a single column should you wish. What we're going to do now is to have a very brief look at revision handling. And the application can be used to create an incremental revision if that's what you wish, and as part of that function, a transmittal letter can be generated, highlights can be created. The automatically generated material is added to the book file, of course, and becomes an integral part of the CMM. All of the revision work is carried out using the book area of the document and using that menu there. Now you can see what we've got here. Initial issue, we can actually change that if we wish to, and we can refresh the CMM variables, but more important, we can either create an incremental revision or go to revision management, which allows us to do revision marks, prepare for new revision, or reissue. Now, with the redo revision marks, what happens when you insert a new revision date is that when you then finally publish it, all the information that occurred before the revision date has its change markers deleted. The system knows about that. So then what happens is, if we then want to, sometimes the revision marks get lost, so you can actually redo the revision marks. It goes through and checks it to make sure that's all right. So you can prepare for a new revision. What happens there is it actually sends a message to the system that actually it's going to do a new revision, and it'll make sure that the list of effective pages is up to date. It'll make sure that the list of anchors is up to date and things like that. Create a transmittal letter. Let's do that, shall we? And it puts it in the right place, as you can see. And if we actually look at that, it enables us then to add the transmittal error so that we can actually make sure that everybody knows what's going on. It's important to understand that, because if we don't make sure that all that information is there and anchored into the system, then it could cause difficulties later on. And it's so important that this revision management system is kept handling correctly. That's the end of this brief video on revision management. There are other videos available to show other functionality of the iSpec2200 application.